Welcome back, everyone, to Diamonds 2020. We are here for the final session of Diamonds 2020. I can't believe that the conference has already come to a close, but thankfully, I still have an hour to and a half or so of your time that I hope to be able to encourage you in your walk as you battle chronic illness or whatever trial you're facing in your life. My name is Sarah Willoughby. I am the author of the book Keys Making Diamonds, A Teen's Thoughts on Faith Through Chronic Illness, and I'm also the host of Diamonds 2020. So I have been watching a lot of this from behind the scenes. I taught my first session on Thursday, and I so enjoyed getting to talk to you about your relationship with yourself and identity and self-care and all of that good stuff. But I'm so excited to talk to you today about courage, and fear, and a chronic illness warrior's relationship with fear. Because I think that fear is something that a lot of us experience. I would like to first of all mention, in case you missed it and you're just tuning in, that the conference study guide is available. If you go to the link in the description of this video, there is the ebook version, which is available completely for free. Um, you can download that right away and follow along as you watch this last session and go back and watch any of the sessions that you may have missed, which we'll talk about. I'll tell you how to do that once this session is over. There's also the paperback version there, which is pretty affordable, and I may be biased, but I think it has a pretty beautiful cover. And I have definitely been following along, taking notes, all of that stuff as I've been watching the conference. So if you haven't gotten your copy, ebook or paperback, whatever you prefer, you can go ahead and do that at the links in the description of this video. Um, there's also so much more if you go to the conference website, and also, as a reminder, this is your last chance to enter the giveaway because we have one final giveaway at the end of this session, as we've been doing a giveaway at the end of every single conference session. So if you would like to enter that, you can go ahead and do that at the link in the description of this video that takes you to the conference page. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, that's where you will find the giveaway entering information and links and the freebies and all of that good stuff. So without further announcements, I'll save those for the end. Let me pray for you real fast and pray for us before we go into this final session. Lord, I pray for everyone here, everyone who can hear my voice or who is watching this session, whether it's live or the recorded version. I pray that you would fill each of us with peace and with joy, Lord, that we would be able to trust you and draw closer to you together as we explore this topic of courage and of fear. I know that there's fear in a lot of us. We have a lot of fear, and that you have called us to live in freedom. And I pray that you please help us to do that. Help us to live in freedom. Speak your truth into our hearts of each person who's here, including myself. God, I pray that you give me clear thinking, that you give me the ability to communicate well what you have put on my heart to share with these beautiful brothers and sisters in Christ of mine. I pray that you help me to have peace as I do this, and Jesus' name, amen. So, you guys are going to have to bear with me because it has been 3 amazing but very long days of this conference, and I am exhausted because there is a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes into it. And so there's a lot of details that I've been trying to keep track of, not always succeeding, but you're gonna have to bear with me because I am totally exhausted. And I'm just gonna be totally upfront with you about that. Because as we've been talking about this whole conference, a big theme that I've noticed is that sharing our stories and being honest about our struggles can be a big encouragement. And I have seen that as I've watched these fellow speakers and conference attendees, you know, share their struggles. And it's been encouraging to me to see that I'm not alone in my struggles and that I'm not the only one who has those struggles. So hopefully, you guys can extend some mercy and some grace to me as I try to do this as best I can. And I'm just going to trust that God's grace is sufficient when my brain fog is not. um, So, as I said, my name is Sarah Willoughby. I am the author of He's Making Diamonds, A Teen's Thoughts on Faith Through Chronic Illness. I am also the author of a few unpublished books, if there's, anybody who wants to publish them watching this. um, I live in the state of Arizona, which is, yes, very hot in the summer and very dry. I'll probably talk more about this later, but yes, that is also why we moved here. I I was a third culture kid and a missionary kid and a pastor's kid. I uh, love dark chocolate, not milk chocolate, dark chocolate and superhero movies and flowy skirts and adventures of most kinds, but not all kinds. Again, I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, I'm Sarah. So it was nice to meet you if I haven't met you before, and if I know you, hi, welcome. I'm so glad that you could come. I have a confession to make. You see, I sit here and I might seem calm and confident, and I'm not sure if I can seem professional, but I might, who knows? Here's the thing, I'm not any of those things right now. Last Saturday, a week from today, I was sobbing into my pillow, like full on sobbing. This wasn't just like, oh, I'm sad. This was like snot everywhere because I am not a pretty crier. And I was just, I couldn't form coherent thoughts. And I was a mess. Because to me, it felt like Diamonds 2020 was falling apart. You see, I got normal people sick, or as a friend called it, muggle sick. By the way, I love the term muggle sick. Only a chronic illness um, warrior is going to know what that means. But I love the term, and I think that we should all use it. Just side note. What I mean is, I got a cold. I got some kind of cold or bug or something. So normal people sick, which means some kind of illness that's common on top of my chronic illness. And the thing is, I had a ton to do because, as I said, putting on a conference is a lot of work. But I had no energy. I was super mentally foggy, like way worse than I am right now. And I had no voice because my throat was sore. How was I supposed to speak for 3 days? I mean, you guys have seen me on here every 30 minutes to an hour for the past 3 days. How was I supposed to speak for 3 days when I had no voice? I was panicking and I was freaking out. And there was no way I was going to remember everything, with my mental functioning or really my lack of mental functioning. And so I was scared that I wasn't gonna be able to get everything done on time. We've been excited, been preparing for this for months, and it's not just me. The speakers have been preparing for a long time, very carefully and prayerfully preparing what they're going to say. And we've, worked so hard to finalize the schedule and to get a giveaway running and to, contact people about giveaway prizes and to get a merch shop set up and a community set up. And there is so many details. And I had a whole conference staff who had worked so hard on this, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I was going to be able to do this. I was just having a meltdown because sometimes that happens. Um, so I was scared that I wouldn't be able to speak. I was scared that no one was gonna come, that all the staff and the speaker's efforts would be wasted. I was scared that 100 other things were gonna go wrong. I even had nightmares about the conference. I've been living and breathing and thinking the conference for so long now that I just the thought of it going wrong was extremely stressful to me. And there was nothing I could do about it because I could take all the vitamin C I wanted, but being a cold sometimes just takes time to get over. I went to my doctor tried to help me, but again, I just even when this conference started on Friday, my throat was in so much it was hurting so much as I tried to force words to make sense past it. So, um, I was afraid of so many different things. And even though I did this last year, even though Diamonds 2019 was a thing, I I was still prepared for this year to be a disaster, even though I knew what I was getting into and I knew it wasn't really that bad and that we were gonna figure it out. I was still prepared for it to just all fall apart because I was so scared and so stressed. So yeah. last Saturday, I was sobbing into my pillow at this point in the day, just in all vulnerability and honesty here. Um, and this past year, I've been struggling with a lot of fear. And it's not just the conference, that's just one small thing that's been the last few weeks, but I've spent many sleepless nights asking God what in the world He wants me to do next with my life. Anyone else, you guys? Come on, virtual hands up in the comments here. Um, I hate unknowns. Some of you will remember from my Diamonds 2020 mini conference session on the Facebook Live that I hate unknowns, the unknowns of having not having a diagnosis, of not having a home, which I shared more about in that Facebook Live if you wanna go back and watch it, but, another fear is this past year, my health has been a little better, and that's been terrifying. For one, it makes me constantly afraid of crashing. You know, there's so many fears that with that as well, and there's a lot of fears with feeling better that I'm not going to get into right now because that's a whole 'nother talk and a whole 'nother book. I literally wrote a whole 'nother book about that. But today I wanna talk about the multitude of fears that often accompany chronic illness in our lives, because chronic illness is really scary. Chronic illness is a huge, serious thing that deeply affects our lives. And as Christians, we need to know what to do with this fear. I know that many of you, the fears I mentioned earlier, the fear of the conference falling apart or the fear of not knowing what to do next of my life, I know they can seem kind of minor. And while they're not easy for me, they kind of seem kind of minor to me as well. Because as um, they they're not that chronic illness presents such serious um brain fog, such serious fears that the day-to-day stuff just doesn't seem to matter anymore. As some of you may already know or remember from my previous session, I have Lyme disease, multiple chemical sensitivity, and toxic mold poisoning. I first got sick just after I turned 14. Um, I was an athlete and I loved theater, and we lived in the Pacific Northwest. So I loved adventures of all kinds. We lived on an island in the Pacific Northwest. So that was like, this epic adventure place. Whether it was summiting a mountain or wading in knee deep mud to get from the rocky beach to the water when the tide was out, or trying some weird new food, because you guys should have seen some of my attempts at baking when I was first learning. Cashew ice cream comes to mind. That failed. I just did not succeed in that, but I tried it. But then I got sick, and God put me on this not so pleasant adventure. You know, in my previous session, you guys asked me what some of my favorite quotes are, and I said this one that Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit said. He said, "Adventures are nasty, uncomfortable things that make you late for dinner." And honestly, I have to agree. On all sorts of accounts, there are wonderful adventures, and even the nasty adventures have great parts to them. Bilbo experienced some pretty awesome stuff in addition to the nasty, uncomfortable, late for dinner parts, but I have experienced that, for sure in some of the adventures, especially the adventure of chronic illness and where it has brought me and what it has, done in my life. So, for so long, I was undiagnosed, and again, you know how I feel about unknowns. I won't go into that more, but then I finally was diagnosed with mold poisoning. That's that's a miracle story that we'll see if we have time for. I won't go into it at this moment because I want to make sure we can get to all of the points. But um so because of the toxic mold growing in our walls, we had to flee our home. It was making me sick. Our home was making me sick. But because my body was so sensitive to mold because it had been poisoned, it was extremely difficult to find a safe home that didn't make me sick. So another thing that was an unpleasant adventure, scary adventure, was we were homeless for a while, not knowing where we'd stay each night because it was just trying to find a safe place that didn't make me sick was extremely difficult. And I know to some of you that that sounds really far-fetched, But as we've been talking about through this conference, validation is important, and if you haven't experienced it for yourself, just just believe me for now. If you doubt it, you can definitely look it up online or talk to me about it. Go ahead. Um, so where was I? I lost my train of thought here, people. Okay, yes. So eventually we found a safe place, which is another miracle story that we just don't have time for. God has done so much that I wish I could share it all right now. But if we have time at the end, I will share that. When I was 15, so we found a safe home, but when I was 15 years old, I was given a month to live. When I was 15 years old, I was given a month to live. I don't know if anyone else has been in that. I know that a lot of you have have perhaps been given a similar sentence, and that's terrifying, and that's scary, and here's the thing, nobody told me. My doctor told my parents this, but no one told me that I had a month to live. Like, hmm, I suppose I was 15, I suppose they want they were just wanted they didn't wanna worry me, and they wanted to take care of me as best they could at that point, but that's a heavy thing, you know? I was just too out of it. I didn't realize what was going on. I was so out of it, I had no clue that I was that weak and that sick. Um, but eventually I did realize, and they did tell me. And how does a 15-year-old process that? How does anyone process that? It doesn't matter what your age is, that isn't easy for anyone. Chronic illness isn't easy no matter how old or young you are. No matter how, what it is you specifically have, it is not easy, and, um how are we supposed to process that kind of stuff? For me, with this particular being given a month to live, um, it was hard. As Christians, we aren't supposed to be scared of death, but the thought of dying scared me, if I'm being totally honest. I wasn't scared of the actual, like, dying part, but I was scared of leaving things undone, and to me, that was terrifying. I felt like there was more God wanted me to do on this earth, and so I was scared that I wasn't gonna be able to get that done, and, um, I was a it wasn't just like, "Ah, I'm scared," it was a deep-rooted fear that I had to work through, and I think that a lot of us, because of our chronic illness, have some deep-rooted fears, whether it's about death or something else that we need to work through. Today, I want to share what I learned as I worked through my deep rooted fear because we were created to live in freedom, not in fear. Freedom. Doesn't that word sound beautiful? Just say that out loud to yourself where you are or type it into the chat. Freedom. Don't you want that for your life? 2 Timothy 1:7, this is in the English Standard Version, says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-discipline." And self-control, sorry. Self-discipline is a different version. This is ESV. So, God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and self-control. And again, I paraphrased, but that's okay. So what fears do you have in your life because of chronic illness? Go ahead and comment in the live comments of this video, guys. What are the fears that you have, whether it's fear of death or something else? Some of the ones that come to mind to me are fear of the unknown. Again, as you know, that's one that I've experienced when I didn't know what was wrong with me, when I didn't know where I was gonna live, when I didn't know if I was gonna get better, when I didn't know if I was going to, you know, be able to live a normal life. I still don't know that. There's still a lot of unknowns. Um, well, another fear that comes to mind is fear of hurting or losing people because of my illness. Um, with mental brain fog, some of the depression and the anxiety that I've experienced, or even just, not quite being, um, whatever. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I've been afraid of hurting people because sometimes Because of the mental issues, my filter's not there, or I can't understand why people are acting the way they do, or responding the way they do, or how they're going to react to something. So fear of hurting people, or even just in my illness, even though my illness I know isn't my fault. Sometimes I'm really afraid of the way that it affects my family, and the burden that it puts on them and the hardship that it puts in their life. And so that's one that I really struggle with is fear of hurting people. I also struggle with fear of losing people. When I first got sick, everyone was there when I first got sick and when I first got a diagnosis, but then it stretched into months and it stretched into years, and some of my closest friends just dropped off the planet. They disappeared on me right when I needed them most. And I think a lot of it was because they didn't quite know how to help, but for me, that really hurt. And so I'm afraid of losing people, of losing relationships because I've messed it up somehow because of my illness or because they don't understand or don't know what to do with my illness. And that's one fear that I have. You guys are sharing in the comments, you said, fear that nobody will take care of me, afraid that you will not be able to do things you want to, fear of hospitals and procedures and tests, fear that you won't be a mother, a writer, or to manage health well, fear of losing loved ones, fear of the future, fear of increased pain and being alone in pain, fear of becoming invisible, um, fear of the unknown, and also continue to fear that my life will never look normal, not fear of not being enough for my kids. There are so many fears there, guys, and I've made it in 2 things down my list here. There's so much fear that we face as chronically ill people, some of the other fears that I wrote down are fear of more pain in the future, which some of you shared. 'Cause, another one is fear of flares. I get afraid that my health's gonna crash for months again or weeks again or whatever, and then I'm gonna lose the small relief I found or whatever, Or fear of good things is another thing I struggle with because I've learned to look at my illness as a gift and as an honor, like Scott DeGroff was talking about in his session. Um, I've also I get worried when I see something good in my life, I start to fear that it's going to come back to bite me somehow, like there's a hidden hard thing in it that's gonna be, like and I fear good things, and that is ridiculous, and that's, again, a whole 'nother talk because right now I'm just focusing on the big picture of fear, but I hope that I know that I'm not the only one who I hope I am the only one, but I know I'm not the only one who struggles with that fear. Um fear of dying, like I talked about, fear of letting people in and having them react badly, fear of what people are gonna think. Are they gonna think that you're not actually sick? Are they gonna think that it's all in your head? Are they gonna think that you're too young to be sick or that you're just being dramatic? There's so many things that we can just be so afraid of. Um, and a lot of these fears seem pretty valid. A lot of these fears, they actually have you have proof probably in your life or in the lives of others that says that it's a real thing you should be scared of. And honestly, some of these fears are valid. Some of these fears are valid. That's scary. I'm not how where's the hope there? Where's there supposed to be encouraging, right? And so far, um, I'll get there, I promise. Stick with me. A healthy fear of flares and some of these fears that they're valid and that's okay, some of these fears, like, for example, a healthy fear of flaring or a respect of flaring can keep us from overdoing it, and it can prevent us from flaring as much. If you have a fear, you say something like okay, I'll just stick to my notes. You guys, if I'll go off on tangents and then I'll get lost. Um so not all fear is wrong, and there are such things as healthy fear, but there's also different kinds of fear. So one kind of fear is maybe healthy because it's more of a respect of something or a wise caution, wise attitude of caution. Um, it's what prevents us from burning our hands on a hot stove or falling off of a dangerous cliff. I want to take a moment for before we move on to say that this session is not speaking to anxiety. If you want a session about anxiety, like specifically anxiety that is caused by that's not as you know what I mean, right? um, you should definitely go check out Anna's session. Who she spoke yesterday, I think. You should go check out her session, which you can find if you go probably to the conference website. The link in the description of this video. And so I want to share that while the principles I am sharing in this session are going to be helpful in probably most situations or all situations, anxiety caused from illness is complicated, and I'm not making light of those who suffer from it. Just side note. So here's the thing. While there are healthy fears, and in some ways, it depends on your definition of fear because there's different definitions. We were not created to live trapped by that fear. If we never do anything because we're afraid of a flare, we will stay shackled in our little bubble of safety. I was talking to Pamela Paquette, who was one of the conference speakers. She spoke on Thursday, and she was sharing how she went to a wedding and it caused a flare. But the thing is, weddings are generally supposed to be once in a lifetime events. There are certain things that are worth a flare. So easily, however, we let our fear of flares trap us. A healthy respect for something unpleasant becomes if we let that trap us, we don't want to let it trap us. A healthy respect for something unpleasant can so easily become a fear that rules our life. And that's why I want to repeat the verse from earlier. A spirit For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. We weren't created to live our lives trapped by fear. Sometimes people can make living free from fear difficult. You see, when our fear seems valid and healthy, people tend to expect it of us. They expect us to be scared. And while it's nice to have some understanding and compassion from people, just because fear is expected in our situation doesn't make it okay to submit ourselves to its ruling in our lives. So make sure that you value the people in your life who are going to call you out on your fear, even when um brain fog. Just a second. I will get there in a minute. Even when it makes sense for you to be afraid. You know, there are moments when all I can think about is how weak and in pain I felt when I was given a month to live, and I can't seem to forget it. When someone asks me to do something because I really am doing better now than I was when I was 15 years old, um, but when someone asks me to do something, I get paralyzed by the memories of my worst moments. And it feels like I can't even escape it. It's just these paralyzing memories, um, of those moments, and I, like, will have flashbacks, and I'll feel like I'm in those moments sometimes again. And it's not even just that I'm consciously remembering my worst moments, our bodies will remember them too, and our bodies wanna protect themselves. I've heard other spoonies describe it almost like PTSD, and that's not easy to get free from. So as I'm talking about freedom from fear, I'm not just talking about fear of flares or of death. There's all kinds of fears like we talked about. When you've tried to open up to person after person and gotten hurt, you stop opening up. It just those memories stick with you, and it is sometimes hard to push past them. When illness has made you lose friendships, you stop trusting people. You stop hoping that they're going to stick around for the long run. And that expectation of pain, it's human, and the world, this painful world, has trained us to expect that. But again, just because it's understandable for us to be afraid doesn't mean that you have to live ruled by fear. The question is how? How can we live in courage when these fears are so deep rooted and so serious? Guys, I'm not making light of your fear. I know that it is a heavy burden for you to bear, and I know that it is difficult. but I want to talk about how. How in the world can we do this? Because you see, contrary to what our culture says, courage isn't just willpower. It doesn't just mean choosing to do something when you don't feel like it or putting on a brave face, you know? It's not just faking me looking confident when I'm in front of you all, even though I was nervous, you know, and I was before my first session, I was shaking uncontrollably. And then I came on and I smiled and I talked and nobody knew. And I told Pamela Paquette because she had a session later that day. Yeah, I was freaking out before my session. She's like, "Wait, what? You were?" And I was. And it's not just doing that. It's not just putting on a brave face and pretending that the fear's not there. Um, Bravery starts in our hearts with someone occupying our hearts. Joshua chapter 1 verse 9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." Let me read that again. Just stick with me. Pay attention to what this verse is saying. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. The reason that we can have courage is because God is with us. It's 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 as simple and as difficult as that. The reason that you can have courage, the reason that I can have courage is simply because God is with us. You see, our fears might be pretty big. They might be way beyond our ability to combat or to prepare for. We might not be able to change anything about it. You know, I had this cold again, which is such a small example, but I still I think it applies. You know, I had this cold before the conference and I was worried, but I couldn't change anything about it. I did my best to take care of my body, but I couldn't change what was happening. I was out of my hands. And this conference is way beyond me, guys. I'll tell you more about that later, but it is so far beyond me. People are like, "Good job." I'm like, "This is so not me. This is God. This is all of the people who generously offered their time." But so your fear, whatever it is, might be huge. It might be terrifying. It might be pretty big. But stick with me. But here's the thing: our God is bigger. So much bigger. I think of the VeggieTales song, "God is bigger than the boogeyman, he's watching out for you and me." If you sang that out loud with me, you should definitely comment and tell me. But God is bigger than all of it. He's bigger than the boogeyman, he's bigger than the diagnosis, he's bigger than a flare, he's bigger than death, he is bigger than chronic illness. Um And he's on our side. He is with us all the time. What kind of combination could be better? God is bigger than a flare. Like I said, he's bigger than what someone says about us or thinks about us. He is bigger than even death. You know, death had no hold over him. Why would chronic illness? In him, we can be more than conquerors. In him, we don't have to live trapped in fear because he is with us wherever we go. Even if it's into surgery or to a wedding or to a new specialist. And the big things are often blessings. You know, the big scary things that are so far beyond our ability to control or to prepare for, um, or to counterbalance. Um, those things can be blessings because when they're way beyond us, we are forced to rely on God. And so you know what? Usually when something happens, I ask God, "Why? Why would you let this happen to me? Why?" You know, and I think that asking God those questions is super important. But with this conference, I got sick before this conference. I didn't ask God why. Maybe I should have, but I knew that He was I needed to rely on him, and that this was an opportunity for me to rely on him and to let go and to surrender this into his hands because it's so far beyond me. Um, and that was a blessing because I got to see what God's done when it's out of my hands, because he does amazing things, that Second Corinthians verse, which I'll probably get to later, I'm not sure, but so many speakers have mentioned Second Corinthians 12:9, which says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me." And God's power is shown in our weakness. So when it's beyond us, that's where God shines, because we get to rely on him. He is glorified in that, and he is so much bigger than it all. Nothing phases him. Throughout this whole Joshua passage, the whole Joshua chapter 1, it talks about not only, it doesn't just say be courageous, it says be strong and courageous. And go ahead and comment in the live comments. Do you feel strong right now? Has your chronic illness made you feel strong? Because I don't know about you, but chronic illness has not made me feel strong. Quite the opposite. But again, courage, like courage, strength is found in God. My illness, as I said, has forced me to rely on God more and more, and so that's where I found strength. I have I would say that chronic illness has made me feel strong, but not in its own power. It's made me feel strong because I have been totally weak, and so I've been forced to rely on God. And his strength, that's where our strength comes from. Like I said, I said, I think I wrote that verse down, and I did. Here it is again. I'll read it because it's a great verse, and it won't hurt. So 2 Corinthians 12:9, and this is the NIV, says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." So let's go back to the topic a bit. I know that I've gotten a little off track, but here's the thing. Do you know what it means to fear God? My younger sister described it simply as understanding God's power. And that's a very simple version. I love it, but I know that there's a lot more to it theologically, but I love that simple description. We can't necessarily comprehend God's power, but some other words for fearing God, are awe of him. When we fear God, we are in awe of him. We have reverence for him. We honor him. Um, when we get a tiny glimpse of God's power and majesty, it gives us a healthy fear and an awe for him, because he is the King of Kings and deserves all of our adoration and loyalty. Here's the good thing about fearing God. So here, I love how Oswald Chambers puts it in the book My Utmost for His Highest, which is an amazing book, by the way. He writes, "The remarkable thing about God is that when you fear God, you fear nothing else. Whereas if you do not fear God, you fear everything else." And if you missed that, you can go ahead and look at that in the study guide. I typed it out for you there. So if you want to read that quote again, when we glimpse God's power, when we fear him, and we know that he is on our side and that he rules over everything, we don't have to fear everything else, but that is so small and insignificant in comparison with him. It might be huge to us, but it isn't to him. It's not very it's insignificant and small compared to him. So we can fix our eyes on him, and when we fear him, we know that he's bigger than all of this, and we can also, when we know that he loves us, we can know that he's going to use the fact that he's bigger than all of that, all of our struggles, for our own good. I want to close by sharing a specific action that we can take to fight fear and to strive to live in courage. It's nice to say have courage, but I want to give you a specific action that you can take so that you can implement this in your life and so that you can have a tool to fight fear. There's the truth that you are not, that God is bigger and that He is with you. Think back to that Joshua verse. But I would like to give you a specific tool that you can use to have live in courage and step in courage. Um, Anna touched on this in her talk about anxiety, but I think it's worth mentioning again. One of the most powerful ways that we can fight fear and strive is with scripture. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. If we go back to that Joshua verse and read the verse before it, it says, "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do all according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success." And then it goes on to the verse we were talking about earlier. "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." And that was the NIV version. And so that's talking about, it starts, don't let the book of the law depart from you, have courage. Like there's more in there too, but like those two things follow so closely and they really are so closely connected. Um, Reading, speaking, meditating on and memorizing God's word is a great way to combat the fears that creep in and to remember the courage and confidence that we can have through the Holy Spirit living in us. Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12, also NIV says, "For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and spirit, of joints and marrow, and discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart." So next time fear creeps in, or maybe even right now, fear has wrapped its chains around your soul, you can fight it. You have the tools to fight it. You have the God of angel armies on your side. You have the God of angel armies on your side. So let's not be content to live in fear. Chronic illness is scary. I'm not questioning that. But we can have freedom. Let's break up with fear. We're talking about relationships. Well, this is one relationship where you want to dominate, that you want some distance in, and where you need some healthy boundaries. Fear should not own you, and it doesn't have to. I don't say this lightly. I say this having wrestled and struggled for a long time with fear that I could never seem to shake. I remember one night in particular, um, I was up really late and I was having breathing problems, which I have pretty frequently from time to time, especially when there's like air pollution. Here in the desert, we get some forest fires, even though we don't quite have forests. But yeah, so I was really struggling to breathe, and and this was a few months or maybe a year after that, being given a month to live. So it was just on my mind, and I was processing that, and so not being able to breathe, it already incites panic. And usually I don't worry about it because it's never caused really a problem besides like, okay, deep breathing. It's never really caused a big issue. But that night, I was kind of stressed and I was worrying about it. And so I was just consumed with this fear. And I felt like this blanket and cloud of fear had been on me for weeks. And I just felt trapped by it. So I messaged my friends and texted them, and they were encouraging me and sending me verses. And then they went to sleep. And they went to bed because that's what people do at night, and I was still up because I couldn't sleep and I couldn't breathe, and just I felt like I was consumed with fear. And, um, a friend of mine who lives in Australia, praise God that there are different time zones, and that we have the internet. Her mom and her just talked me through it, and they texted me verses, and they talked me through it and just reminded me of the truth. So when I say have courage, I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying that having struggled with it, having been trapped by it, having been up many nights, because I was afraid for so many reasons and even stuff that's too personal to share on here because boundaries are important, and I'm being super vulnerable as well. But I say that having wrestled with it, having been trapped by it, um, and I still struggle with fear. I still do. But praise God, I am no longer ruled by fear. I am free. And I want you to be free too. So I have so much I want to share. But I hope that that encouraged you. If you are struggling with fear because of your chronic illness or just anything else going on in your life right now, I want to encourage you that God is with you and that He is bigger than it all. He's with you. He is on our side. He loves His children, and He is so much bigger than it all. So I'm going to take some time to pray, and um, then we have a Q&A, and we have giveaway, and we have acknowledgments, and we have announcements, and so yeah, so stick around for that. But let me pray for you all. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for every single person here who can hear my voice. I pray that you would encourage them right now. Lord, give them courage. Lord, fill us with courage when we struggle to make that choice on our own. Give us, let your Holy Spirit dwell in us, for you do not give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of self control. God, I pray that you would help us to live in your love, in the light of your love, that you would open our eyes to even just catch a small glimpse of the power that you have, of the love that you have, and help us to understand as much as we are able to with our human minds how big you are, how much bigger you are than the fears that we face and the struggles that we face. Um, I pray for myself that I would live this year in courage, Lord, that I wouldn't be afraid of flaring or what people would think, what people would say, how people would react, or of a diagnosis of that none of us would be live afraid of any of these things. We wouldn't be afraid of healing, of more pain in the future, of um, losing people, but that we would be able to let it go to you, and that we would be able to surrender it all to you, and that we would be able to just trust you because you are so much bigger than it all and you love us. Thank you that you are both all powerful and that you love us. Lord, if there is anyone here today who has not surrendered their lives to you, Lord, or who needs to re-surrender some parts of their life with chronic illness or anything, Lord, I pray that you would soften our hearts and would help us to be willing to let go and to give it all to you. Um, Help us to honor you in our illness. Lord, I pray that as each person here goes out to continue battling day by day and moment by moment their illness or whatever it is in their life, God, I pray that you wouldn't let them forget the encouragement that they've heard, the truth that they have heard this weekend in the past few days. I pray that you would continue to remind them of your truth. And I pray this in your name. Amen. Um, I want to take a moment to say that if there is anyone here who has not accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior, but would like to or just has questions about it, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of the conference speakers. A lot of us are accessible on social media or on our blog or websites, and we would love to talk with you more about this. Or even if you just want someone to pray for you about, whatever fear you're struggling with, please don't hesitate. We would love to talk to you about this, talk you through it, encourage you however we can. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I promise we don't bite. We are pretty understanding because we need a lot of understanding ourselves. So go ahead and do that. Um, and while you guys can go ahead and start asking any questions you have. We have a Q&A that's the end. And then we're gonna do the giveaway. So yeah, go ahead, ask any questions that you have about fear, about God, I'm no expert here, but I will try my best about chronic illness, about faith in chronic illness, about Diamonds 2020 or Diamonds 2021, as it may be. So just go ahead, ask any questions that you have. I would love to talk to you. Um, yes. So I feel like I forgot something, but I don't know what I forgot. um, yeah. So please don't hesitate to ask questions or reach out whatever you would need. Yes, Bethany said that the Slack community is a great way to do that or to connect with us on social media. So if you go down to there's, I'm going to talk about this a lot, and I'll get onto that after the Q&A. But at the conference link to the conference website in the description of this video, there is you can find the information for the Slack community and you can join that. That's where you can talk to everyone else who's been here. You know, if you've made friends with someone in the live comments but don't want to tell everyone else your email, you can go ahead and go there and connect with them there or talk to us speakers there. A lot of us are over there too. So go over there, talk to us, reach out, and connect with people so that you have some ongoing support. This, once this conference ends, because I know that right now we might all feel excited or encouraged. I know I am. I've been encouraged by what everyone has been sharing. But in a few weeks, in a few months, I want you to still know that you're not alone. And I just want you to still have someone who understands and who can speak truth into your life. So yeah, go ahead and check that out if you have not already. Haley says, plans for Diamonds 2021. Just kidding. You need some rest. I know. I need rest. I will rest. I promise I'll rest. Thank you to everyone who's reminded me to rest. Plans for Diamonds 2021. Well, we don't have any announcements to make. As far as I know, that will be happening. So if you haven't registered for Diamonds 2020, make sure that you go and put just your name and email in the link to the conference website down below so that you don't miss any of the announcements for the next year. So if you haven't done that, please go do that. I don't want you to miss out next year. Bethany Rose asks, how has the Diamonds Conference morphed from the beginning? Great question. That's a great question. Well, it started out with Bethany saying, I published my book. My book, He's Making Diamonds. And I said, it was a few months, and I said, okay, now what? I've been working so hard on this book for so long, and suddenly it was published and people were reading it and it was out into the world, and I didn't have anything to do for it. And I was like, what in the world am I supposed to do now? So I said, now what, basically? And people were helping me brainstorm, and I was posting this on my writing community that I'm part of, the Young Writers Workshop. By the way, registration open today. If anyone's interested, you should definitely check that out. But I said, okay, Bethany suggested, well, what about this? What about that? What about a conference, like an online conference or something? And I said, I love that idea. I don't know exactly what I said. Basically, that was my reaction. And so it was October 2019. I thought, I'll need a few months. I'll need some time. And I said, okay, January. We'll do January. That's a good amount of time, right? It's not a good amount of time. You need a lot more time to plan a conference, just FYI. But so that month I started emailing all these people. I knew some people, but I also didn't know a lot of the speakers. So I started contacting them through their websites and social media when I couldn't find an email address or a contact form, and asking them about all of all would I was like, so I'm doing this conference, and I tried to sound really professional. And a lot of them said yes, and I got a lot of no's too, and I got a lot of people who didn't answer because they're busy, and I had no clue what I was doing. But they said yes, and so last year we had 10 speakers. I want to say 10 speakers, and it was a day and a half. That was how long the conference was. and it was all scrambled together, and there was no merch shop, and the community was like this last minute thing when I realized that people didn't want to post their information in the live comments. And it was just all kinds of crazy, and I had no idea what I was getting into, but it was awesome. And God did so much through that, and that was so cool. Um, but then this year, it's even bigger. We have a merch shop. We have a way for people to donate. Um, a we have a blog tour. We have a staff, like a official full staff, as opposed to just friends who found me panicking and said, "Okay, I'll help with this." We have a staff that's working for it. We have 17 speakers. That is almost double the speakers. That is crazy, people. And we had a lot of people come back. We have a lot of new speakers, and it was amazing. And it was 2.5 days as opposed to 1.5 days. So, um, just like, I don't even know, I can't do math, but that's more. So it has grown and changed, and I've learned a lot. And I've also learned a lot that we're going to improve upon next year. The speakers and the staff and I are already talking about some of the stuff that in the future we should do better, or what we can do in the convening time between the end of now and next year's conference. So yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Bethany. Um, Gabriella asks, what encourages you when you are believing the lies of discouragement and hopelessness? Good question. I have some when lies attack, honestly, there are some things that help me most, and one of them is scripture. And I know that all of us speakers keep going back to that, but it truly is helpful. And I'm gonna give me a second because my voice is failing. Like I said, recovering from a cold, so let me get some water. Um, yeah, okay, that is better. So yeah, so scripture is a huge one, but also just listening to music. If you cannot brain fog again. Here we go. I'm doing this. Come on. If you can't focus on scripture or something, or you can't remember it, or it's not right there, listen to worship music. To me, that's something that really helps when I'm believing the lies of discouragement and hopelessness. Another thing that I'll do is I will text my close friends, and I will say, I'm struggling. Can you pray for me? Or I will, I want a few friends, and one of the things I do is, if you guys know from the Hunger Games, they do, PETA and Katniss do this whole like real, not real thing. And I know I'm not going to get into that, but I have adopted that into my own life in some ways. And even just last week, when I had this cold and I was prepping for the conference, I texted my friend and I said, real or not real? And then I texted the lies that I was believing, and real or not real, I texted another lie, real or not real. And she would reply with, helping truth or whatever. And that was really helpful to me. And that's one thing that I do that helps me when I'm believing lies. But yeah, so scripture, other Christians, prayer is another one, worship songs for sure. Anna asks, do you hope to write another book? Well, I have actually written two more books. They're just not published yet. My second book, I'm currently pitching to agents, and I hope to traditionally publish that. And that is called Light After Darkness. You can look on my website. It's there. There's a post about it somewhere that might be hard to find, but um, and that's about reclaiming life after long-term illness. And I won't get into all that, but I'm really excited about that one, and I can't wait to be able to share it with you all. And my third book is, I haven't told anyone what it's about yet besides my very close friends. So, yeah. I definitely do. I've written more books. Those are both nonfiction books. I'm hoping in February to start writing write a fiction book. So definitely, I will be writing more books. I will, unless God changes something, I hope to be publishing more books, and all of that. So yeah. Anna says, thank you so much to Sarah and everyone for putting on this conference. I was so blessed by it and encouraged. I love all the support and great advice. I very, very much appreciate all of you. Well, thank you so much, Anna, and thank you for coming. I'm so glad to hear how it encouraged you. That is such a blessing to me. Oop, I lost where the questions were. Let me find it. There we go. Kenna asks, how can we learn to balance becoming more independent while also leaning on support from others in the midst of chronic illness? Great question. I'm not 100% sure if I'm being honest here. Um, how can we balance becoming more independent while also leaning on support from others in the midst of chronic illness? Um, well, it's a really is a balance. You have to know what it's going to be different for each person, what you're able to do and what you're able to do independently and what you need help with. My family has been a great help with this because they are great at pushing me to continue to try what I can do. And then I also have other people like Bethany Rose or like my family again who will say, "Okay, Sarah, you are overdoing it. Please breathe and drink water and rest." All of that good stuff. Um, it can be very difficult, and outside input can definitely be helpful. I've needed this. I've needed the outside input because there are times when I'm just exhausted and I don't want to try more, or I just want to keep trying more because I'm frustrated and I need to rest. So, outside input can be helpful. However, it's also important to remember that you know your body best. God knows your body best, and also definitely follow his leading. And doctors can be definitely helpful, but you do know you live in your body. You feel, and you can learn to feel when you are redlining, you're reaching the point where you need to stop, or when you are plateauing and you're not, you could be doing more, but you aren't. So I don't necessarily have practical tips for this. I would invite outward advice, definitely, especially from people you trust and who know you and who love you. Um, but be wise with that as well and take what they say with a grain of salt because you're the one living in your body. Um, I don't know if that was helpful, but that's what I've got to offer at the moment. And definitely always follow God's leading. And sometimes it just takes experimentation. Sometimes you just gotta experiment and realize, to know where your lines are, where your limit is and where your limit is not. So, experiment is also something which is hard because that can sometimes hurt. Experimenting can hurt, but that I think is something you just have to do, which is difficult, but I welcome wise advice as you experiment. Anna asks, how has the Young Writers Workshop been a blessing for you with writing? It has been a huge blessing for me with writing. Before I joined the Young Writers Workshop, as some of you may have remembered, Kara Swanson, she taught some sessions. She is one of the instructors over on the Young Writers Workshop. And I was part of the Young Writers Workshop when it was not even what it is. It was nothing like it was today. It was this little itty bitty thing that was just like a addition to another class that I took. But it has been a huge help because it's encouraged me, and it's always helpful to have other people around you to say, to cheer you on and to understand your struggles and your triumphs and to all of that kind of stuff. That's a huge part of it. I also, before I was part of the Young Writers Workshop, I dreamed of writing and I had a blog and I was part of a magazine, but that was what really helped kickstart me into writing a book, into learning how to market a book and share a book, and um, which also taught me the skills for this conference, that kind of stuff. It also gave me access to training and to materials and to people who knew more than I did about writing, about publishing, about all of that stuff, and so that kind of stuff was hugely helpful, and not having to reinvent the wheel myself, not having to figure it all out on my own, but having people with wisdom who were ahead of me in this author-writer journey who could give me, um, advice and input and encouragement. So that's something that's been super helpful. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, the registration, they only open twice a year, I think. So right now registration is open for that, and Bethany posted the link in the chat. So I love the Young Writers Workshop. So if you are a young writer, go for it. And it's um they have all kinds of payment plans to make it affordable for everyone, especially with those who have medical issues. So check that out if you are a young writer. um Haley says, "But Diamonds last year was still awesome, and you learned so much that you were able to apply this year." For sure, it was amazing. I learned so much. I had fun, and I learned a lot. And there was a lot of people who came and were encouraged, and the speakers there were amazing as well. We had Vinitha Rendell Reisner, we had Sarah Walton and Kristen Weatherall, and we had Johnny Erickson Tata also did a session even longer than this year's last year. So yeah, if you haven't watched Diamonds 2019, go do that, and you can find that on the same website where, Diamonds 2020 is. Anna says, "How do you run the conference? What program do you use, if you don't mind sharing?" Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I would lo if anyone is gonna run a conference, I've learned so much through trial and error and research. I'd love to share anything, because it is hard to figure out on your own. I we are using for this year, we are using StreamYard. Last year, we used Hangouts on Air, which is part of YouTube, but that was not available. So this year, we are using StreamYard to run it, the behind the scenes stuff, so that comments can show up on the screen and multiple people from multiple locations can be live at the same time. So StreamYard, yep, that's it. There's a free version as well. I got this so that we could do some extra things, but there's a free version. So if you guys want to experiment, go have fun. It also works on Facebook Live and other platforms as well, in addition to YouTube. Um, Oop, I lost the questions again. I will get there. Here we go. I love your mug. We have the exact same one. That's funny. We got this at like a garage sale somewhere. This whole like set of dishes at a garage sale. That's the way to do it. Bethany says, "I can't wait to see what you do with your novel." Yep, I'm excited, but also nervous. Ashley says, "Before you got a diagnosis, how did you deal with those types of fears? Fear of the unknown, fear of what a diagnosis will mean, etc." This has been a big one for me over the past several years, as I have had no answers and then only partial answers. So I have had to deal with those fears on and off. Great question. I The fear of the unknown, what helped me was knowing that God knows the unknowns, because while I don't necessarily understand what is going on or why it's going on or when it's gonna have, something's gonna stop or when I was gonna get a diagnosis, I it really helped that I knew that God knew it and I knew that He loved me. So I knew that He was going to take care of me and He was going to provide for me and my family even when I didn't see it. And I knew this because I've seen that in my life before and I've seen it in other people's lives. So something that really helped me was looking back on my life and thinking about when God had provided in the past. I share in my book about a another a time when I was very sick. The doctors didn't know if I was going to make it. This was when I was young. I was 4 years old, and we were living in Korea, and, in my book, I share it more in detail, but he miraculously healed me, at that point as well, and I haven't necessarily gotten that instant miracle healing this time around, but that is definitely a something that helped me, was looking back in my life to where God had taken care of me and my family in the past. So I would encourage you to look back over your life and over the lives of the Christians around you and watch God's hand work. And remember that He did it for you in the past. He's not left you. He's still with you, and He knows the future. He knows the unknowns. So yeah, that's something that I hope would help and encourage you. I don't know if it does or not, but I hope that helps. Sorry, talking about the fear of diagnosis. Um, for me, diagnosis was exciting because it meant that I had some direction that I could go to help treat what was wrong with me. And so diagnosis to me was an exciting thing because it was finally an answer. And like I said, unknowns aren't my favorite. So yeah, I don't know if anybody has any advice for Ashley. Go ahead and comment it. If I know that diagnosis can be scary, and that for a lot of people, it's just it's out of you don't see it coming, or it's a life sentence, and then it was. And the other thing is I didn't quite understand what it would entail. I thought it just meant, "Oh, okay, we'll just treat it and I'll get better." And yeah, I didn't know what a chronic illness was at that point, but yeah. So, look back at God and what he's done in your life through the hard things, through the good things, and remember that he is taking care of you and he's not left you. He's still there. Um, Bethany says, "My mom used to say once I was on a path toward healing, you're standing on the edge of a cliff. Eventually you're going to fly, but it was okay that it wasn't right away." And that's like I love that quote. I actually quoted that in my second book with Bethany's permission. But yeah, I it's hard, it's scary. Anna says, "How long is the merch shop open?" Good question. It will at least be open for the next week. I will email you guys the date that it closes. Can't remember that. I can't think of that off the top of my head. But yeah, speaking of the merch shop, guys, there's a merch shop. If you want a reminder, that can help you, a tangible something you can hold that can help you remember in the weeks and months to come that you are not alone, that you are loved, that you are worth it. You definitely go check out the merch shop that you can get to from the link in the description of this video to the conference website. There are sweatshirts, there are t-shirts, there are tank tops, there are coffee mugs, phone cases, stickers, a blanket, potentially other things that I'm forgetting. So definitely go get that. There's a lot of awesome stuff over there, and all of the proceeds are going to help support this conference, both to pay for this year's fees and that we've had to pay. We offer it for free, but it isn't free for us to necessarily provide. So go check that out over there. And treat yourself. It's a win-win. You're helping your fellow chronically ill warriors, and you're treating yourself to something special. So I mean, yeah, go for it. um, Bethany also is saying, you're on a practical note, sometimes I would take small steps. I would try the things that were doable first, and that's a great tip. Doable things, just take a little step, a little step, a little step, and an experiment. And it's really difficult. And I wish it's a whole nother session. I wish I could talk about more now, but unfortunately not. We don't have time for that. So if you want to talk more about this, message Bethany or I, okay? Um, Kenna, I think it was. Yeah, Kenna. So you can message either of us, or I'm sure we'd be happy to talk to you about it. Ashley says, "What are your favorite Bible verses to have memorized / wrote out for days when you are struggling? And what are some things that you do on hard days to keep from just sitting with an idle mind?" Good question. Okay, so some of my favorite Bible verses, like I said, 2 Corinthians 12:9. That is one that I just really have stuck to. I still have it taped inside my closet because my closet is where I would go and just kind of try and hide from the world when I was really struggling. And so that's where I taped this verse. I printed it out, in some pretty font, and I colored it in pretty colors, and I taped it in there, and it is still there years later in my closet. And it is 2 Corinthians 12:9, which says, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me." I also, if you look in the study guide, well, I mean, that's Bethany's page. It's awesome. She shares great verses. But in the study guide, I share some scriptures here that hopefully would be encouraging to you. Nope, that's also Johnny's page. She also shares great scriptures. Okay, I do have some in here. See, there they are. But brain fog. Isn't it fun? The That's one that I definitely recommend. And just looking through here, there's some great scriptures. I wish I could remember some of the other ones off the top of my head, the references. There are a lot in my book that I really enjoy, really appreciate, but I can't remember a lot of the references, and I am so sorry about that. Um, but I would recommend looking through the study guide. Again, the ebook's free, so there's a link down below. So that would have a lot of scriptures that hopefully would be encouraging to you. But yeah, 2 Corinthians 12:9 is one of the biggest ones. I also memorized Ephesians chapter 1. That was also very encouraging. It's just, it's talking about so many promises and so many just affirmations about who we are as children of God. So, yeah. Um, as for your second question, what are some things you do on hard days to keep from sitting with an idle mind? That is a good question. There are a lot of days when I was struggling so bad mentally that was still, if I was still in and I had time to think, I would spiral and it was just really difficult for me. So I often just kept myself occupied. I read a lot. Um, I would watch movies. I would, um, listen to music. That was a big thing that I helped, was listening to music. Um, but if you're just bored, honestly, because illness doesn't let you do a lot of stuff, some things that I liked to do was, um, I would make jewelry, which was sometimes difficult because I have some joint pain. But when I was able to, I would like to make jewelry and I like to knit and just do something with my hands that felt like I was being productive, but I was able to do sitting or laying down and resting. So that was something. And again, I loved reading. Reading honestly was something that I did, and reading was isn't a waste. You know, even if it's fiction, reading is something that is very productive to do with your time, and it's something that really helped me, All that time I spent reading was a huge help when I sat down to write my book. And it was a huge help when began to process the emotions. I learned so much through reading, and there's also so many amazing nonfiction books. We've all have a list of books that we mean to read or we mean to do and we don't. Or this conference, I was talking to some friends and neither of us have gone back to watch Diamonds 2019, but we should, you know? So if you have time, watch sermons or read books or, craft, whatever you can do that is, that can help you still get, do some stuff while still taking care of yourself and resting. So hopefully that helps. Thanks for the question, Ashley. Um, Caitlin said, I struggled with terrifying fear prior to my diagnosis, and God used Isaiah 43, 1 through 3 to comfort my heart so much. That's a great one. Um, Thanks for sharing, Caitlin. She says, it reminded me that whatever happened, I am His, and that He is with me, and that He will take care of me. Thanks for sharing. If you guys have any other scriptures to share with each other, go ahead and comment them. That's great. Um, Julie says, just want to say how helpful the study guide is. Best resource I've ever seen from any conference or anything like this of any kind. Well, thank you. That is a high compliment. Thank you so much, Julie. It was a lot of people worked together on it. Caitlin actually was the person who headed up that project. She was amazing. And all of the speakers just worked hard to contribute to that. So I am so glad it's been helpful to you. Anna says knitting or crocheting is definitely wonderful with a chronic illness. Yeah. Joint pain was on it. Like it's something that doesn't have a lot of it's somewhat easier, you can put it aside when you need to. The only problem I ever had with it was joint pain. Otherwise, it was awesome. Yeah, Haley says Caitlin did a great job. She really did. And I also want to I'll shout them out later, but there was also some amazing people that formatted this. But Caitlin, you did awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, this was a lot of people worked together on this. So if you have any more questions, we have a few more minutes before we're going to go to the giveaway and goodbye and acknowledgments. So go ahead and comment if you have any more questions. I'm going to get another drink of water because, yeah. See, the problem is the table isn't quite like near enough for me to reach without like doing this weird reach across the room thing. Abby says audiobooks and coloring books and painting are my favorite. Oh, that's awesome. I've been to, one of my best friends. She really enjoys painting, and I know a lot of chronically ill warriors who enjoy coloring books as well. And that's something that you can do well. That's still kind of relaxing and still able to work with whatever energy you have. So I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And audiobooks too. If you can't read, there are times when the words I just couldn't visually see them because I was having eye problems or I couldn't comprehend them. So I would listen to books or whatever. And I wish I had listened to more because that's a great resource. And especially if you have brain fog, reread books. I am a big supporter of rereading books. So go ahead and reread any books that you have read before, and that way you can still follow along if you have brain fog a little easier with, but still get to read. So yeah. Ashley says, I want to rephrase what I said earlier a little bit. I have had fears of what a diagnosis will mean, but at the same time, I am so excited and eager for a hopeful, comprehensive diagnosis finally. I know when I hopefully do, it will mean so much. Yeah, it's such a weird feeling. It's so scary and it was just like it was so scary, but it's also exciting. And I feel like most people wouldn't get that, but I think that a lot of you probably do understand that tricky balance. Um, Julie says, when I feel too bad to read or even watch sermons or movies, there are so many great podcasts. That's just an idea. That's a great idea for sure. Again, yeah, there's so many awesome podcasts out there that are just uplifting and encouraging. And it's one of the things that you can control the volume. So sensory issue, it helps a little bit. And you can lay there in bed with your eyes closed and totally still and still be listening to an audiobook or a podcast. So I love that. That's a great idea. And it says audiobooks, podcasts, live stream, listening to sermons, totally. Such wonderful activities that are encouraging and beneficial for sure. And I know that Becca talked a lot about this in her session about faith-filled friendships when you're bedbound. So if you guys missed that session, make sure that you go and rewatch that. Ashley says, great ideas. Thanks. My first for the year is Psalm 119:50. My comfort in my suffering is this. Your promise preserves my life. I love that verse. That is so beautiful and so encouraging and comforting. Adeline asks, what is your favorite part of this conference? Hard question that is to answer. Hard a question as that is to answer because it's amazing. Um, Good question. Yes, that's a difficult question. Well, I just love getting to connect with you, with the speakers, with the conference attendees, getting to talk with you guys, whether it's on email or social media or in the conference community or in the live chat. I love getting to connect with you because it reminds me that I'm not alone too. I know there are so many chronic illness warriors out there, and I know that there are a lot of you in a similar boat. But there's just something about seeing your faces and seeing your comments that makes it more real, and that helps me remember that I'm not alone, and that helps me remember um that my silent suffering is seen, and also I want to remind you guys that your silent suffering is seen. Maybe you're not in front of a camera right now, but you are in front of people. Whether you live with them or not, there are people that are watching and that are watching how you're reacting to your suffering and your illness and your attitude, and you are a living testimony to God way more than you realize. And even, as a writer, I I I post blog posts every week, and you'd think that, but I even as a writer and an author, I don't hear from people very often either. So I just want to encourage you that there are people watching, and that are encouraged by you, even if you don't see it or if you don't see the fruit. So, yeah, just that encouragement. Let's check the schedule real fast because we have a few more minutes. If you want to have any last questions, please go ahead and share them. Yeah, we have a few more minutes. So if you have any final questions, please go ahead and share them. And then we will close off and say goodbye, which is so sad. But sorry. Yep, I do. I used to be a theater kid, so voices. I like to do accents. Don't ask me to do accents, I mean it. Um, yeah, so if you guys have any final comments, go ahead and share them. I would love to hear them. Otherwise, I will, go into the final announcements and everything that I have to share. So, in the meantime, I'm gonna get more water. I have been obsessed with lemon water lately. It seems to help my liver, which I'm not just saying blanketly do that. I'm just commenting. I've been obsessed with lemon water lately. Yeah. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I will go ahead and to go to the giveaway, the final giveaway, and all of the acknowledgments and just all of the final announcements that we have to make. So go ahead and comment any more questions that you have. Okay, it looks like we have one from Julie. Julie says, "How long can we access these videos for sessions we missed?" For an undetermined amount of time. Hopefully, for at least a few months, probably a lot longer. Um, the Diamonds 2019 sessions are still available. If you missed last year's conference, go watch it. It's still available. Um, and if you missed any of these sessions from today, definitely go watch that. The links are all the same links that you were sent, but I will send you a compiled playlist of them Monday probably. Um, so yeah, if you missed any sessions, they are going to be available for quite a while still. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Caitlin says, "I'm not sure how to phrase this into a question, but what about fear of healing and all that that means?" Good question. See, this is the topic I was avoiding. um, good question. Okay, so let me think about this a minute. The fear of healing is I there's a lot around that, and I wrote a book about it, so I'm not sure how to summarize here. However, I shall try. Some of the fears, as I've been getting better physically the past year, um, I'm I sometimes hesitate to share that because I feel like then I can't relate to you, but that doesn't change the fact that I have walked through chronic illness and I still am. So, that's one fear, is fear of no longer getting to be part of this amazing community and no longer being able to for you guys to relate to me. That's one fear, if I'm being totally vulnerable. Another fear is fear of getting better and then crashing. As I've been doing a lot better, I'm afraid of losing the ground that I've gained. Another fear of healing is, um, you know, not using my healing well. I am, uh, oh goodness, brain fog. I am I got that I was told I have a month to live, and I lost several years of I didn't lose those years of my life, but I wasn't able to do everything I wanted in those years of life, um, that I was where I was so sick. So I'm afraid of not using my healing well because I know how valuable health is and how precious it is, and I would like to use it to the best of my ability, but sometimes I don't know what that means. And I'm also just afraid of getting sick again, and I still, I have to process a lot of the fears from when I was so sick. You know, when I was so sick and so out of it, I didn't really get to process a lot of what I was going through. So as I've been doing a little bit better, I have had to process that, which is not very fun. Um, it's great and it's amazing, and I feel like I shouldn't complain because I know that so many people would love to be doing a little bit better, but I just, yeah, I've just had to learn to process what I went through. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but hopefully that helps. Yes. Okay. Well, if nobody has any more questions, I am going to go on to the giveaway and the final announcements and everything. So, recap. At the link down below, there are 2 links. Well, there are more links, but there is a link for the study guide. There is an ebook version, which is available for free. If you have not yet gotten that copy, go ahead and download it. It's totally free. It's as you've seen, people are enjoying it, and it will help you go through the conference, and remember what you've learned as well as apply it to your life. So you can think about it has some questions to apply to yourself. It has some Bible verses you can read on your own. It has, the main points so that you don't forget them, so that you can think through them. For example, one of the questions from this session about um, fear and courage is, what are some of your biggest fears related to your illness? Or what does it mean to you to fear God? So just some general questions. There's also some further resources, songs, books, articles, all videos, all kinds of stuff that we have um, recommended. As a note, I don't necessarily endorse everything that each speaker has recommended because I haven't had time to research everything yet. But, so as always, even in you're watching these videos of the conference, watch with discernment, read with discernment. I just want to send that as a reminder. Also, there's prayer in here. So, also, if you want a paperback version, as I have already mentioned, they are available also down there at the link in the description of this video, and they are available for free. Not for free, sorry, I said that wrong. The ebook is for free. This is pretty affordable. It's pretty affordable, and the it will go to help support the conference both this year and in future years. So, yeah, go ahead and get it. If you would like it, you don't have to. Whatever you desire. I'm not very good at selling stuff, but that's okay. I'm not trying to sell stuff. I'm just trying to encourage you. Um, So let me think what I was going to say. Okay. Also, down at the link to the conference website, you will find freebies if you did not win in a giveaway, or if you did win a giveaway, there are freebies there. There is a sample chapter of This Too Shall Last by KJ Ramsey that Zondervan provided. Thank you, Zondervan. There's also a bunch of awesome resources that Chronic Joy Ministries provided. Chronic Joy Ministries is an amazing ministry that I definitely endorse. They're great. Pamela Paquette taught a session on Thursday. If you missed her session, you can view that. Speaking of missed sessions, that we will send you all of the links that you have are the recorded version already. You can go to the same link and rewatch or watch whatever you missed. But we will also send you a compiled playlist of them next week. So probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there. I'm not 100% sure. If you are watching this months after, you can still go watch the rest of them. Yeah, so that is that. There's also, as we said, the Slack community, which you can go to also at that link down there. And my link to my website is down there, my blog, if you want to connect with me or find out more about me. I'm on social media at R535blog, Twitter and Instagram, Facebook. I'm SG Willoughby author. Yeah. You can see how Willoughby is spelled by looking at the name tag on this video. And there is also other stuff on the website that I'm forgetting about right now, but that it's awesome. And the Slack community, so it's free. You can connect with all the other people here. There's already a whole bunch of people on there. Go ahead and do that. Also, feel free to share. share any video that you think would encourage someone, go ahead and share it with them. That's totally fine. I would love to be able to encourage more people through our message and through what we said. So go ahead and do that if you feel led. Anyone, it doesn't have to be someone who's chronically ill, just anyone who's been through hard stuff or knows someone who's going through hard stuff. It could help them. And it's not hard to do. It's one way that you could encourage someone else. Okay. And then, yes. So we're going to go to the final giveaway for the conference. Who the winner what we are giving away is, my tab is not loading. There we go. We are giving away a signed copy of He's Making Diamonds. So the winner of that is, hang on, let me add a random winner. Okay, here we go. Is KJ Ramsey. So congratulations, KJ. You have won a copy of my book, He's Making Diamonds. If you didn't, that's also available on Amazon, ebook, paperback, whatever. So yes, and if you would like a free 7-day devotional companion to my book, He's Making Diamonds, just sign up for my email list, which you can do on the homepage of my website. So go ahead and do that. The website is also down there in the description of this video. And congratulations. So I love reading the acknowledgement sections of books. I know that this is weird, but as an author, I know how much work it takes to put together a book, to write a book, to publish a book, and how many people it takes. It's not a one person. There's one person's name on the cover, but there are so many more people that are part of it. So I'm going to take this moment to acknowledge and thank everybody who was part of the conference. I would encourage you to stick around and chime in with your thanks in the comments, but if not, go eat your dinner, enjoy your weekend, yeah. Okay, so here we go. Thank you, first of all, to the speakers. We have Bella Morgenthau, Scott DeGroff, Lynn DeGroff, Bethany Beal, KJ Ramsey, Haley Rose, Tessa Emily Hall, Pamela Paquette, Becca Doss, Christy Johnston, Haley Hudson, Kara Swanson, Esther Smith, Anna Pustai, Stephanie Kerr, and Bethany Rose. Thank you so much to each of those amazing people. I also want to shout out two in particular. We have Haley Hudson and Bethany Rose. They were the unofficial staff members of last year's conference, and they are official staff members this year. Haley Hudson has been managing the Diamonds 2020 social media, and she has been a huge blessing and a huge help. She's also done so many other behind the scenes tasks and spent so much time, and she's sacrificed a lot of energy and time for this conference. So thank you so much, Haley. And Bethany Rose, thank you so much as well. She is the one who reminds me to drink water and breathe and rest and stay functioning. And she has been, like I said at the beginning of her session, it was her idea in the first place, this conference. So she's been a huge blessing and a huge help. So I am so grateful for her. She was also a speaker at Diamonds 2020. So thank you to those two. Thank you also to the other staff members for Diamonds 2020. Or first of all, we have one more speaker, Johnny Erickson Tada. Johnny and friends, thank you so much for providing that video. I know that it encouraged a lot of people. And so yes, the other staff members are Caitlin Mulan, who was the person behind the study guide. She spent so much time making this pretty, working through the typos and all of that. So thank you so much, Caitlin. You did amazing. And she was such a huge help and encouragement as well. Also, thank you, while we're on the study guide, thank you to the beta readers. I think we had 2 beta readers, Crystal and someone whose name I'm still blanking on, and I'm so sorry, but thank you to you two so much for that. Thank you to Angela Watts, who was the blog tour manager for Diamonds 2020. Angela did an amazing job with that, and she also sacrificed lots of time in the middle of a lot of craziness and busyness. So thank you so much, Angela. Thank you also to Julia from Lit a Flame blog. She is also hosting her own flash fiction contest and managing so many other things, but she also took the time to be um, the community manager. So if you look over on the Slack private conference community, she's the one who made that possible, and she's been doing lots of behind the scenes stuff. So thank you so much, Julia, again. Also, thank you to Sarah Holman, who volunteered her time. She volunteered to do this for free, and she formatted the ebook study guide copy. So thank you so much to Sarah Holman. Jessica Grayson formatted the paperback study guide version, and she did a beautiful job. So thank you so much to Jessica. Silas Willoughby, my brother, was the graphic designer. He also created um, the graphic designer for this conference, and he also created the trailer, the conference trailer. So thank you so much to Silas. He is awesome. He's my brother, but he spent a lot of time making that, and he also helped make the cover be finalized. Speaking of the cover, thank you so much to Grace Peterson, who made a beautiful cover. Also, she volunteered her services for free because she wanted to support this conference in her own way. So thank you so much, Grace. You did an amazing job and creating both the paperback and the ebook cover. Well, they're the same cover, but yeah, you know what I mean. So thank you, Grace. Also, thank you to Sam Sheridan, Sam Sheridan, who helped answer so many of my questions about the technical side of things. I know I took advantage of the tech support that he offered, but he was such a huge help and a huge blessing for a lot of the technical stuff behind this conference. So shout out to him, because otherwise this would not be quite as put together as it was, answering all my questions. Thank you also to the blog tour team and the street team. You guys were both amazing in sharing this conference so that it could get to the people who needed it. And I am so thankful for all of the work that you put into it, and all of the excitement that you had for it. It was such an encouragement to me. Thank you also to the Diamonds 2020 sponsors. So these companies donated products from their companies for us to give away to you, just so you could be blessed, So thank you to Ability, their t-shirts. Thank you to Ability Adaptive Wear. Okay, wait, I got the t-shirt name wrong. Thank you for them. Thank you for all of them. Thank you for Ability Adaptive Wear and Vogue Mask as well, and Aware Causes. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to, sorry, it's Teaspoonies. Teaspoonies was the t-shirt company, and I am sorry, but I'm a spoonie, so I have brain fog, but it's Teaspoonies. So thank you to all the sponsors. And finally, thank you to my family who dealt with my stress and my panicking and my cold and helped support me in a lot of behind the scenes stuff and take care of me so that I could do this. So thank you so much to all of them. Yeah. I know that I probably missed people, and if I have, thank you to all of you. Thank you for attending and sharing and all of this. Please definitely share this conference with anyone who you think would be blessed by it. And with that, I will say goodbye and thank you so much for attending Diamonds 2020.